Welcome back to Family Time. We're still looking at the dashboard in our marriages. As you know from the last time, we were talking about the fact that every marriage, like a car, has a dashboard. And the various lights and various symbols on the dashboard, when they flash up, they tell you you need to either change your oil, you're speeding too much, there's no fuel in the car. So today what we're going to be looking at is the speedometer. What does the speedometer tell us in our marriage? And with me once again is Pastor Kingsley Ep2, Head Pastor, Trinity Baptist Church, West Norwood, and Pastor Mrs. Cynthia Ep2, who is Pastor Kingsley's beloved wife of 30 years. So Pastor K, speedometer now. I like the speedometer, I must admit, because I like driving very fast. So what is the speedometer in our marriage and what does it tell us?
Yes, the speedometer on its own is one of the major components on our dashboard, because not only is it helping you to know how fast the vehicle is moving, because it will tell you on your dashboard. On 2 occasions, Juliet, I have fallen victim to the law in the UK. One of them, I was driving to the east, and I don't know what happened, but on this wide stretch of road, I did not pay attention to the fact that the limit was 40 mph. So I think I should have been doing about 40 something, 50, maybe a little bit more. Then all what I heard behind me was a private car with a siren. Woo-hoo. Just asked me to park. He was very kind, and of course, I was very polite. And he said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but this is the limit, and this is how much you were traveling." So in short, took my driving license details, and it came back those days with 3 points. And the second was...
Sorry, Pastor, do you get a fine as well? Did they fine you in addition to the 3 points?
No, it was 3 points. The second also, I was driving in a living area, and the limit, of course, I know is 30. No policeman stopped me, but 2 weeks later, I get a letter from the Metropolitan Transport Department that on this day, with a photograph of my car, that I was driving at a speed of 33 mph instead of 32.
Oh no!
So, yes, so 2 things. Either I pay £140 plus 3 points, or I go and take a course. So I said to myself, I'll go and take the course. And this course is a half-day course. You sit in front of a computer, and it's between you and so when we were introduced, they told us this exam nobody fails, just to discipline you to obey the law. And it was amazing, Juliet. Over in that particular class, there were about 4 classes, over 100 and something people. And in the class in which I was with that computer, after the exercise, I was talking to some of them, and I was asking them what they do. I was shocked. Managers, lawyers, CEOs. Then I remember a friend telling me a story about him getting late to a meeting in Africa, in one of the African countries. And his driver was overspeeding. So this policeman emerges from the bushes with this, how do they call it? The gauge, the police. The gauge, and saying, look, 70 instead of 50. So in short, bring your license, get down, we've seized the car, we're taking you to court. Then all this while, the preacher, was quiet at the back. So the driver got down to go and talk to the policeman. This is in an African country. I won't mention the country. So the driver tells the policeman, "Oh, it's my pastor. He's preaching somewhere, and we are running late, hence, so I'm very sorry. He says, where is your... So he goes into the car, then sees the pastor, somebody very well knows, oh, man of God, just give an offering and go.
So it's not a bribe, an offering?
Offering. It's offered to collection, they call. And two scenarios. Here, I'm caught, and one by a policeman. I paid the full penalty of the law. The second, by a camera, I had to go and take a test. The other, just give an offering and goes. So a speedometer helps you to know how fast the car is moving. But when it comes into the marriage, the head of the family, and for that matter also the wife, must ask themselves, how fast am I running this family? Am I running my family into debts? Am I competing? Am I trying to catch up with the family? Or do I understand that 1 Timothy 6, chapter 6, verse 6 tells us that but godliness with contentment is great gain. Am I content? And it is very important that couples understand that marriage is not a competition. And the essence of your speedometer is to help you know that God has called you and given you your family not to compete with another family. The essence is not catching up with the Joneses, because the destiny of the Joneses are totally different from your own family. But the sad thing is that too many marriages are in competition with one another. Borrowing monies they can't pay, buying things they don't have money for, and most of the times things they don't need.
Because you see, a lot of men will say that, the marriage is in a hurry, they're buying things they can't pay because we, the women, are putting pressure on them. Is that the case?
I believe that sometimes women do put pressure on the men as well. But in a lot of cases, I believe it's not so. I think that sometimes it's especially projects. When we talk about this in the context of the UK, a lot of people have projects in mind, and they want to accomplish a particular project. And Pastor has talked about how sometimes we want to keep up with the Joneses, and so we are buying what we don't want, we don't need, and all of that. And sometimes as well, I also believe that it's also our lives as well. We are speeding up with our lives. We are running. We are having to do several jobs. So our very lives are running, because we feel that we have a short, and most people have in their minds, most of the people that will be listening to me, they have in their minds that, okay, wherever they are living now is not home, and that they'll be wanting to go home, wherever home may be. And so they plan, okay, I have 5 more years to acquire this much. I have 5 more years to finish off a project. And so it means that this next 5 years, it's going to be running my life fast, because we want to accomplish something. And there is a danger in that, because when we are running our lives fast like that, we are ignoring the fact that there is a marriage to look after as well. We are so focused on what we want to get. Maybe it's not necessarily to be over rich or whatever, but we are looking to our future, which is a good thing as well. But we need to have a balance, because you could be running so fast with our lifestyle, trying to get whatever we need to get, that our marriage is suffering. So at the end of the day, you will have, and this is a very common feature, you will have what you wanted. You will do it. You will build that house. Many times you find that in that process, you lose each other. There is then a divorce, because certain things were happening, but because we are focused on this outer thing, we didn't pay too much attention. You've got what you want, but the marriage is no more. So we need to be careful.
Pastor, what is the effect of the speedometer, the very fast speedometer, on the children? in a home if they have children.
Can you imagine, Juliet, mom and dad in a home and the bailiffs knocking your door? And coming. The shame you bring on your own children. Unfortunately, because of the recession, this is no fault of anyone, just that the economies of the Western world became such that, and you know, I remember one American senator saying that it's all because of our indulgence and because of our greed, we've run and the excessive borrowing, we've run the economies of the world into recession. Let me make two illustrations in scripture. Two young men who were always on the run, Jacob and the prodigal son. The truth about life is that we have to know that life is a test and not a competition. And whichever area we find ourselves, God will always take us through some testings. He will test his relationship with us if we are genuine about it. There's no one that God used that God didn't test. How strong is my relationship? If it comes to the cross, will I abandon my faith and do something else? So God will test his relationship with us. He told Abraham, the very son that you love, take him and offer him as a sacrifice. God tested our relationship. God tests our faith. When the children delay, what do? Does the man start running ahead of the family by going for other women, saying, I have to get the child and all that? But coming back to the two names I mentioned, here is a young man who was on the run because he wanted everything and now. Jacob used his witty and craftiness not only to take the birthright of his brother, but also to take the blessing of his brother, something that was duly his. But because he did that, he had to be on the run, on the desert, running away from the threat of his brother desiring to kill him. He ended up sleeping on a pillow, but even in that run, God meets him. Then he had gone to Bathsheba, acquired all the wealth that one would want on his way back home, because God had told him to go back to Bethel. On his way back home, he stopped because he had to choose what was important. And he discovered that what was important was not the wealth that he had acquired. And Jacob would have given everything to his brother. And he told the Lord that, Genesis 32:24, that I'm afraid of my brother. And he was scared that he would kill him. So he had to make that important decision and ask himself what was important. So he discovered that what was important was that in the night he was left alone. And that was when he struggled with God. He discovered that most important issue in life is not about the running for wealth, competing, trying to outclass others, and it's contentment. And God had always loved Esau even before he was born, but he ran ahead of God, paid a price for that with the guilt and the fear, but thank God, God intervened for him. Then you look at the prodigal son. That boy couldn't wait. Always on the run, he waited for the dad to die, and when he discovered that the old man was not dying, he said, give me what is due me, and I want it now. Then he went, spent all of it. Then the consequence of sin and running ahead of your time caught up with him. And there are too many people who are running, and running ahead of your time has consequence. For me, it was a fine, 3 points fine, and having a whole half day wasted. Talking to a computer, answering a computer, something that I could have easily avoided if I had obeyed the rules. And I didn't, and I paid for it, and I'm glad I took my punishment, and I took it with honor and with dignity. And I think the British government shouldn't stop doing that, because too many drivers overspeed in our nation. So this young man now spends all what he had acquired by running ahead of his time, only to come to the realization that that is not all what life is about, because these things, naturally, money has wings and it can run out. It runs out. Then he now comes back to his senses and remembers that in his father's house, even the least of the servants was better than where he found himself. So the issue then is that looking at the speedometer in the family, how am I running? Am I considering the consequences that if I overspeed, I can crash the family and bring untold disaster? It can maim myself, it can maim my wife, it can maim my children. Therefore, paying attention to your speedometer is extremely important. If the law is at 30 mph, that is how you must move. If it's 70, don't go beyond that. And in the relationship, in your marriage, you are not in competition with anybody. God has called you by name. And it is very important that if I can't afford to take my child to a private school, I don't have to. Because my next door neighbors have got good jobs and all their children are in private schools. I must also take mine, knowing very well, you look at your income and you know that so you are borrowing, you are buying the latest car that you don't need, higher purchase you don't need, and the law in England, buy now, pay later. But the truth is that whether you pay later or whether you pay now, you will pay. Yes. And the truth is that you can't run away. The worst of it is that you will be blacklisted. And the number of families who financially have been blacklisted and their credit is in tatters. They can't get any credit from anywhere because they did not pay attention to the speedometer signal on their dashboard.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor C, how do you strike the balance? You know, it's, I'll take the example Pastor just gave about taking your child to private schools. You know, you find yourself living in an area where genuinely the schools, you look at the performance and it's just abysmal. You can't bring yourself to take your child there. But it's also difficult. You know, some people will say, try the grammar school approach. They may not be a near one. You know, there's, you know, the society in which we live itself is very competitive. And the society is compelling you to run. Yeah. So how do you maintain that equilibrium and ensure that, okay, you are going according to the pace that God dictated for your particular marriage? Okay.
It's a real issue. I think that especially with schools, of course, getting into grammar schools is not the easiest thing. It means that you will have to pay, you know, teachers and do lots of whatever to get your child through tests. But you know, it's always something I tell parents, do it. If you've got the opportunity of having a grammar school nearby, always take that opportunity and do it. I believe that there are other options as well. If your child didn't get through to a grammar school, what you could also do, there are other opportunities. For example, there are now springing up lots of Saturday schools, lots of evening schools in every area where you can enroll your children in extra classes. Or you could also employ some teachers in the main subjects, maths and science, or maths and English, some teachers to come home and supplement it that way until you can get your child in a really good school. Most of the church schools are good as well. And every year we do a lot of recommendations for parents to take their children to a church school. It's something we take seriously. When these forms come up, you know, we stop everything, make sure we complete these forms and send them within the deadline so the parents can have good schools for their children. So schools are a big issue, but I believe that we can always find ways around it. Extra tuition at home, if your child can't get into a grammar school. But having said that, if you have the money to also take your child to a private school, I don't think Pastor is saying don't take your child to a private school if you can afford it. If you can, that's great as well.
Thank you, Pastor C. Pastor, I want us to look at the other side of speed. You know, where so far we've looked at you're going too fast. Okay, there's also the issue of you get on the motorway, you are in the high speed lane, which is 70 miles per hour, and your car can only do 30. Yes. That is also an issue with your speedometer. So how does that reflect in a marriage where things are perhaps going too slowly?
I think, Julia, that is one of the most painful aspects in a marriage, where the man doesn't know where he's going. And he will not, he doesn't know where he's going. He's a go-slow man. But he will not leave the fast lane and drive in the slow lane. So what he's doing is that every car is beeping because the motorway is busy. And the truth is that either you follow the cars or, of course, join the buses in the slow lane. But here is this gentleman. Slow, 30, slow but sure. And the sad thing of slow drivers, and for that matter in a marriage, is that it brings frustration to everybody. So you find out that in that marriage, the wife is totally frustrated, extremely unhappy. Any suggestion the wife brings, yo, wait, I'm not ready, wait, anything. When you begin to see that in a marriage, not only should a man wake up, but he must also understand that the possibility of him having other cars crashing behind his car is very strong. If for any reason you have to slow down, and there are times when every marriage, of course, you come to a point where you have to slow down and examine issues, let your wife know. But you cannot, for the last 10, 15 years, you've been in that slow lane. 30 mph. 30 mph is not for the motorway. Use the arrows, use the country roads, and leave those that are ready to be on the motorway themselves. But the truth is that there are too many marriages where, and you know what, because on the day, there was another guy who had to take the test because instead of 30, he said he was doing 25.
So he was also punished.
So that is so important because he's also, and I remember just before the exams, the guy who came to introduce the exam and how driving at 32 mph can kill, and how driving below the regulated speed in a built-up area can also create confusion. The number of cars you cause to pile behind you, you know what? You are wasting the time of all these drivers. So if, because of your slow driving, 10 cars are parked behind you, and you are delaying them at least 10 minutes, it means that 10 times 20. So you are reducing production of the country at least over 10 times 200 minutes. And I'm telling you, 200 minutes to a consultant. You have no clue what the damage. 200 minutes to a lawyer. 200 minutes to a teacher. 200 minutes to a doctor. 200 minutes to a bus driver who has to go, and people have closed from their shifts. They need the others to come and change them for them to go and have time with their families. This consultant has so many patients waiting for him because contracts are 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And here is this slow driver sitting there 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and the road is so narrow that you can't overtake him. So he can't be bothered. And you know what they do? fly over me. So that's a very, very important issue you have raised, and it's unfortunate. And the truth is that there are too many go slow. It is happening. Too many go slow drivers, and the wives are frustrated. And the other way around, the other way through is there where the man wants to move the woman. I'm not ready. So you see the man frustrated, and because he loves his wife, he will not do anything silly, but wants the wife to come along with him. There is nothing greater and sweeter than when the two are in cooperation, hands are knitted together. You are on the right lane driving, and at the regulated speed, and every family and the speed God has given to you. For some, because of the calling, by virtue of God's calling over their lives, God wants them on the motorway to be doing the maximum 70. And there are those also, because everybody's talent is different. There are those also, God wants them to move at 50 miles per hour. So the truth is that we all have to be very careful.
Thank you very much, Pastor Kingsley. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this episode, but we'll be back still talking about the dashboard in our marriage. Today we've been speaking about the speedometer, what it means when you're running too fast, what does it mean when you're running too slow. Pastor just concluded by saying that for some families, God has put them in the high speed lane, which is a 70 miles per hour. Some belong in, the outer lane where they can do their 30 miles per hour, or even on the A roads. What Pastor didn't talk about is what happens on the German Autobahn, where bits of it have no speed limit. But that's food for thought for another time. Okay, the next time we'll be looking at the light on your dashboard. What does it mean when the light comes on? What light is it? Pastor Cynthia has said you even need a light to be able to see what is actually going on the dashboard. So stay tuned and join us next time as we discuss these issues.